Tonight we're going to be talking about routine to recreation and transformation power of hobbies and interests. And for me, this was a topic that I wanted to talk about because I don't think that a lot of people have hobbies. I have had plenty of conversation with people at work and different things, and I would just share a little personal story, about inside of our life. So I'm married and my wife doesn't work. So, and my wife is younger. So a lot of people, my wife's 31. So a lot of people think that at 31 you shouldn't be retired and that you be at home all day, you're going to be bored and different things like that. So I challenge people and I've asked people and they've like, hey, your wife's at home. Like, I could never stay at home. I would be so bored. And I'm like, well, what do you plan to do when you retire? And they're like, they don't really know. And I'm just like, well, that is what she is doing now at 31. She has the opportunity to enjoy her retirement at a lot earlier age. And she's not bored. Like, she has, certain things that she does around the house and stuff like this, but she also has her hobbies and different things that you can do. So, from talking to a lot of people at work and just in life, it seems like a lot of people don't have hobbies or interests in different things like that, or maybe they don't have time for them. So I just thought that this would be a good conversation to have, because as I've gotten older, I have developed more hobbies, and I have seen the value that having hobbies have added to my life. It's in certain places have allowed me to learn more information, to meet new friends, to collab, a whole bunch of different things that hobbies can do. So, with that being said, man, do you got any hobbies? And if so, what are they? And if you don't, why not? So that's for you and for anybody in the chat. I just want to know who got hobbies and who don't.
So I like the way that you led into this question because I think this question is is really profound. Um, but can we kind of step back just a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
I had a thought while you were talking, and I know it may sound very simplistic, but my thought is not just do you have hobbies, but what are hobbies and what are the purpose of hobbies?
Mm.
That was my first thought because during our conversation backstage in here, one of the things that came to my mind is that a lot of our habits that we created are actually taught to us at a younger age. So we
Mm.
didn't see a lot of people, like we talked about, we didn't see a lot of people growing up that had hobbies. We didn't see a lot of people traveling. We didn't see a lot of people doing a whole lot of anything. Only thing they did was work, work, and more work. And what we kind of tied that to them. Well, what you can say about your granddad is he was a hard working man. Yeah, absolutely, because that's
Mm-hmm.
all we seen him do. So for me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, um, because I think you're a little bit more versed at hobbies than I am. Just being completely transparent. I think a hobby for me would be something that I do to break the monotony of what can be perceived as work, whether it is work to me or not. It is something I do to break the monotony, to create balance in my life. I can't be too much of one thing. I can't be all work and zero. I don't want to say play, but it's kind of like, all work and no play is kind of like how they say it. So I can't be all work and zero play, right? I have to be work and play. It's not a 50-50. 50-50 isn't balance, right? Because that thing that varies from person to person, whatever you perceive, depending upon where you are in the pursuit of your goals, your destination, your purpose. But there has to be some degree of recreation in there that fits your character per se. Because I think all of us still have a kid in us that is yearning to peek his head out every now and then. Hey, can I come out and play? Sure. So to me, that's what a hobby is. And what is the purpose of the hobby? The purpose of the hobby, like we talked about previously, a couple of weeks ago, is to prevent burnout. It allows me to unwind. It allows me to kind of go back and re-experience some of my youthful behavior. This is where you get some of the most profound laughters if you have people that you can share those hobbies with. Really to and when I say profound laughters, I mean like you laugh so hard till your side hurt or something of that nature. So when I talk about what a hobby is and the purpose of the hobby, it has to be to where I can create balance in my life and it prevents burnout. Now, to your question, do I have any hobbies? Yes, I do. And if I may, pardon me,
Mm-hmm.
I shall
You
return.
may. You may. See what Coach got going on. Uh-oh, he got a drone.
I do have hobbies. I should have had my props ready before we started.
Uh-huh.
Touch me, y'all. This is my hobby. I like to
Okay.
go outside, and and it has a 4K camera on it. Okay. I like to go outside periodically. I like to elevate my drone and fly around the neighborhood, taking a look at what's going on. Now I know some people don't like that because they think you're spying on them. That's not what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Really just looking at a different perspective of the earth from an aerial view, kind of like map. You know what I'm saying? Remember in the army you had to define a map, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it is. It's fun to me, and I don't stay out there for hours. I say that because sometimes we look at a thing and we want to saturate ourselves with a thing. You don't have to do your hobby for hours. It's just something to break the monotony. So every now and then I go out in the backyard and I fly this bad boy up, or I could even go to the park and fly it around the park or whatever the case may be. But just do something to break the monotony. Bro, my bad. I've been talking long. I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Let me turn it over to you, man, because I want to learn from some of your because I'm sure you have way more hobbies than me. This is one.
And
I just wanted to
I
show it.
got some hobbies, and I don't know if you can look, but if you look right there, there's one of them. See those big stack right there? Those are tires right there. So with that being said, here is like Coach. I didn't get my props either. I got one right here. So this is just one of my five RC cars that I have now. So
Mhm.
this is just one of the things that I like to do too. Like Coach says, to break up the monotony. You know, hobbies is something kind of do in your leisure time, or even you can even actually make time to do your hobby. I think it's very important, and I think a hobby should be something that you enjoy to do. It shouldn't be. Can hobbies be stressful? Absolutely,
Mhm.
because when these little jokers break down and I had to go and spend money, like them tires back there, four tires back there, right? For two tires, they're about $85 for
Mm.
two tires. So just replacing tires on my big one is 190 bucks, $180 or whatever. So hobbies can get expensive. Um but all of them don't have to be expensive.
Right.
Some hobbies require a whole bunch of stuff, and some hobbies don't require anything. For some people, their hobby is to read. If you enjoy reading, then read. You know what I mean? Hobbies look so different for everybody else. I think hobbies can be used to bring out some of our artistic personality. And we can talk about hobbies. Like I got a painting right here. I got one right here. Got one right here, and I know I got at least three in the living room of paintings that I've painted.
Mhm.
I'm not no artist, but it's something that I enjoy to do from time to time. I think Charlotte Ann, I gave her it was like three panels, and it was a picture, and it was all connected together that me and Deshelle had actually painted together. And I think I gave it to her years ago. I ain't seen it. She probably threw it away. Charlotte Ann, you throw that painting away? Um, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, man, I definitely have hobbies. I have a few of them, and I don't understand why people don't have hobbies.
Well,
Um, Actually, I do, and maybe we'll get into it. But and that's kind of what you talked about earlier, like with granddad, hardworking man and stuff like this. I didn't really see a lot of people growing up that had hobbies either. I don't remember if my dad had one. Maybe he liked to read or write or something, but
mhm.
and I see it sometime with older people who don't have hobbies or anything going on, and they get older and they sit around and they don't do anything anymore. And from what I've heard, one of the quickest ways into the grave is not doing anything. So I think that could be an incentive for people to learn and develop hobbies. Like I talked about learning. Like I've learned so much about RC cars, and how to fix them, and adjust this, and paint and colors and different things like that. Like it's an opportunity to learn too. And
Yeah.
then and there have been people who have turned their hobbies into um into businesses,
Mhm.
and for them it may not be that bad because they still get to do what they enjoy to do as a hobby, and I've seen people turn hobbies into businesses. So um,
I do have a question.
yeah.
And if I'm getting ahead of myself, tell me, say, hey, we're going to talk about that later. We'll get there.
Hmm.
So, is watching TV a hobby?
So I would say this honestly, it can be. I think that if you set aside some time
Hmm.
and you look at it as something that you enjoy to do, I think it can be a hobby. And I think it depends on what you're looking at. I think it's okay to just indulge in trash sometimes because we're human and sometimes we need some ratchet stuff, but sometimes we need some educational stuff too.
Yeah.
Just being honest, because we're multi
That's
person. Yeah, yeah, multi. Yeah, that word right there. Um, so I think but I think that if it's preventing you from being productive, then I think then that's where it can kind of switch over from being a hobby to something that's kind of sort of leading your life. That can be a slippery slope, um, um, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's TV or whatever.
so. I'm glad you said that, right? And I want to go back and make clear why I asked that question.
Hmm.
Because if you tell me that reading is a hobby, which simply requires me to sit down and flip a couple of pages, and I can view that as being entertaining, especially what I'm reading, then can I achieve the same effect if somebody is reading a script to me on the screen while they're talking to another person, which
Yep.
is in essence watching TV?
Hmm.
Now, in my opinion, I frown upon TV, even though I watch TV. I
Hmm.
just try to make sure that TV don't consume a lot of my time, and I think that's
Yep.
what you're getting at. If you deem a hobby, and I'm not telling you that TV can't be a hobby for you, but whatever you deem a hobby, it can't overpower your life.
There you go.
That's where a lot of times we exist in, because the joy that we experience in the hobby, we want to stay in it, right? So we become super sensual. What I tend to say, we're led by how we feel, we're led by our emotions, but you still have these goals that you created, you still have these tasks that you got to take care of. And so we say, yeah, I get to that later, I get to that later, I get to that later. And so I'm existing in space where my hobby exists because I'm enjoying it, I'm having fun, I'm meeting new people, they're fun, they're exciting. I just learned about Garfield, and Garfield is telling me this new thing. I didn't even know you could do that. That's awesome. I want to do that too. But then,
Hmm.
next thing you know, these tasks are still waiting. And oh, yeah, maybe they have a deadline. So you forego your priorities to exist in your hobbies. That's not what hobbies are. Do not allow hobbies to become distractions, right? We got to find that balance between the two. That's what hobbies are. When hobbies are properly balanced, then they become an asset to your life. When we become imbalanced one way or the other, whether we're goal seeking, right? 100% goal seeking or 100% hobby, and hopefully nobody's like that, then both will not serve you well. Even though if I'm 100% goal seeking, I may achieve my goals, but I may get sick. I may get, some type of sickness or whatever the case may be, because I'm always like all gas, no brakes. No, man. Sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses.
Absolutely. I just was looking through the questions. That is, we are definitely going to get into that.
My bad.
No, you good. You're good. You're good all day long. Um, so even before then, let's talk about the mental health part of that. We about mindset and consistency over here, and like I kind of mentioned earlier about just being idle and not doing anything. As it pertains to your physical body and just sitting around not doing anything. So how can developing hobbies and interests improve mental health and overall well-being?
Great question, first of all. Um, I will first start off by saying that there's a child in every adult. That child is yearning to come out and play. I think I mentioned that previously. Well, every now and then we got to let the child out and play. Think about it. Think about having a dog, right? And you got a dog in the house, and you got a dog in a cage. So while you're at work, the dog is in the cage, and the dog has pent up energy. Then you let the dog out the house, and the dog comes out the house. You start running through the house real fast, just doing laps. And you're like, "What in the world is wrong with this dog?" And then when you let the dog in the backyard, first thing they do, doing laps, going to find a spot, and they're gonna handle their business, but they're still running back and forth till they get to the point of breathing. The same thing exists in you. There is a child in you that is itching to come out. They want to go outside and play. They want to play in the grass and start throwing mud and stuff like that around. So when it comes down to how can developing hobbies and interests improve mental health? It kind of taps into another side of your brain. It taps into another facet of you. It releases, right, all of that pent up frustration that you had when you start looking at slow cortisol drips that you had in the space of working because of the high stress environment that you may be in. When you're participating in hobbies, you're having fun, you're releasing different type of chemicals, endorphins and things of that nature, and you really start to feel good about yourself and feel good about life. And then whatever it is, even if it's a hobby to where it has a physical activity, I know Terrible Terry Tate loves that, right? If it has a physical activity, it's like even taking a shower in the evening, you feel totally different after doing so. So when you look at the mental health aspects, you're not, like I said, all gas, no brakes. Like you're kind of evening it out. And when you even out life, it really puts you in a position to where you're a lot more calmer, you're a lot less stressed, you're a lot more relational when it comes down to other people. So people like you better. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. People like you better when you have a more balanced life. But when you're all this, like, rah, 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 I don't want to be around no person like that. I don't know anybody who wants to be around a person like that. Why? Because all they do is think about work. They go to work, they work 8, 10 hours a day. They come home, they spend the next 2 to 3 hours talking about work. And if, like, say for example, if you're married and you're like, honey, how's your day? Well, let me tell you about my day. And they give you the rundown from the time they got in the office to the time they got. I didn't ask you about all of that. I want to know how your day was. Like, you know what I'm saying? Don't describe the day to me, describe you to me in your day. And I think that's the piece that we have to understand. When you have these hobbies, like, it gives you something to look forward to outside of the norm. And then when you start doing that thing outside of the norm, man, it's just like you get to the point to where it's like I'm free. I can just like spread my wings and just like exhale. And that's kind of like where I want to go with that one because I think this is key when it comes down to the mental. There's so many things, bro, to where you really stop and think about it that keeps you on high alert. You got the news, you got the weather, and again, if you're anybody out there who was affected by any serious weather here lately, I hope all is well and my prayers go out to you. But the news, the weather, the local news, the sirens going down the street, all this other stuff, that stuff keeps you on high alert. Hobbies brings you back down.
Exactly, 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 bro. Great. Um, I understand all of that. Um, One of the things about hobbies is you remember, like you mentioned, like being a kid, right? And having that pent up energy and wanting to go out and play and do all of these things, right? The good thing about that, remember as a kid, and a lot of us adults, everybody wants things their way. We all want to do what we want to do,
Yeah,
right? Well, a hobby gives you an opportunity to do what you want to do, right? So, a hobby gives you permission to do something for yourself. You talked about burnout, and we talked about it on, in the previous show. And with that being said, this can directly help prevent burnout. When you get to do something you want to do, you feel better, right?
hmm
When you get to go to the beach or when you get to play with your drone, you're like, man, you ain't thinking about Coach's Corner, you ain't thinking about you ain't thinking about Hearts of Men podcast, you ain't thinking about nothing else. When you flying that drone, you thinking about, you know, flying that drone, what you're gonna see, you know what I mean? That 4K camera, you're not you it gives you an opportunity to detach a little bit, you know what I mean? And to not focus on, like you said, all of those stressors and different things that everybody has going on a daily day basis in their life,
yeah,
and that helps with our mental health. And then
yeah,
it helps with our overall well-being too. Because not only do we feel good, our body feels good. Now our mind is in good. So now when our body and our mind are in line, and
hmm
we talk about the mind, the body, and soul, when we have all of those different things that are in line, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
Now it makes for an overall better me. It
yeah.
makes for an overall better you. So I mean, just developing hobbies and interests, I don't see how they cannot improve, you know?
Man, listen, I had a thought. If I
Ooh. Mhm.
may, here's why I love what you said so much because you talked about one of my favorite topics, the three parts of your being, right?
Mhm.
And one of our responsibility is putting ourselves in alignment so that we can
Mhm.
function properly. The beautiful part about it is that once you put yourself in alignment, you can give your subconscious memory a task and then go do your hobby. And you might be surprised to find out that your subconscious memory may complete the task and give it back to you while doing the hobby. So you
Mm.
get some of your best ideas when you deconnect from work and go and participate in your hobby. You may get an idea that you get like, hey, I need to figure out how to do this thing. And you give that to your subconscious and you say, you know what? I'm going to do my hobby. I'm going. And you're doing this thing, like case in point, I'm talking about me and my drone, and I'm flying. I'm seeing different perspectives. Pay attention to it because that's the key. I'm seeing different perspectives of the ground. I'm seeing different perspectives of the houses. Like it's different when you see a house from a rooftop than it is from the front, from the ground perspective. I'm seeing different perspectives of cars coming down the street, and then next thing you know, voila, this idea comes to my mind. Well, where did this idea came from? Well, it came from your subconscious. Well, why didn't I get it when I was sitting at my computer, at my desk, trying to figure this thing out? Because you were stressing yourself out to where you were severing the connection between between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So sometimes what we have to do is trust the fact that your subconscious mind is going to give you what you need at the right moment in the right time. And then that trust factor allows you to disconnect and say, hey, I'm going to enjoy this hobby thing. And in that relaxed state, that you're experiencing while flying your drone, while driving my RC car. I'm still tripping on the cost of them tires though, but driving my RC car, things of that nature, right? You get the idea, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And it's like, what you really want to do is like, you want to land the drone where it's at and write the idea down, but I can't because it's like, so many, what in somebody's yard or whatever. But it's a beautiful thing to understand the benefits of putting yourself in proper alignment and then recognize what the authority of you really is. When you can do that and then give yourself tasks and then detach and trust that whatever version of yourself you gave it to will give it back to you that you asked for, it is a wonderful feeling to know that it works.
I already know that was a golden nugget. So if you did not write that down, I encourage you to go back at some point this week and go back and watch. Even if you do not watch the entire video, go back and watch that little snippet right to go back and watch that little golden nugget. All right. Coach wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't. It caught me off guard, but it's beautiful. And the music was awesome, by the way. I love the music.
It was real quick, man. I
It was
try to keep
quick.
it
Yeah,
short. Yeah, just a quick nugget.
absolutely.
Um, I think one of the problems, like I think we both mentioned that we didn't necessarily grow up in seeing a lot of people with hobbies. And I mentioned that, it probably really wasn't until I had things that I did, but I don't know if I really focused in on or dialed in on an actual hobby.
Mm.
I played sports. I played flag football, and in the army, I was on the softball teams. I did track. Anytime there was an event that had something to do physical or running or something, I always kind of volunteered to do those. But I never really developed my own or never really discovered my own hobbies or not really my own interests. It really wasn't until honestly, like my kids, probably the two youngest ones, got in high school, middle and high school. Once they start getting older is when I really started diving into some of the different hobbies and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or discovering new hobbies. So I know for some people, these people may say, man, well, I don't know what to do. You know, I don't know how to start hobbies or anything like that. So what do you think could be some effective strategies for trying to figure out or discovering new hobbies and new interests? Because some people honestly don't even know where to start.
I feel like I'm at the plate and you just pitched a fastball straight down the pipeline and I was expecting you to do it. Like
Mm.
you set this question up so good. I just wanted to say that. Um I want to go back to your story and capture that and bring it into this because I think it makes sense to do so. When you go back and consider yourself in your younger years, whatever the case may be, playing football, playing basketball, even when you start looking at, just exercise, lifting weights, whatever, there was a degree of competition in there. You're playing football, you're competing against not just somebody on your team for the starting position, but once you get the starting position, now you compete against another person on the team, another team. I'm sorry. Same thing with baseball. You got to compete for your position, but then you compete against the other team. So there's always high stress in those things that we call hobbies, which really isn't a hobby. That's why I say that even though, sports is great for children, but we also got to recognize that it's high competition. Even in the midst of gaining hobbies, there's still competition in the beginning because you're competing against yourself. Self wants to do this thing really good, but self say I got to learn how to do it. So self need to be patient with self so self can actually learn how to do it. That's competition, right? Well, what are some effective strategies for discovering new hobbies? First, start off by recognizing that a hobby cannot be a hobby for you and when you have high levels of stress, high levels of competition. Like I ask you right now, when you're out there driving your RC car, do you feel like you're competing against anybody else?
Nope, it's just me.
Just you having
Yeah,
fun, wild
and
and
trying to learn how to do maybe certain tricks
fun.
or certain things like that. Yeah, I'm in competition with myself. That's it.
But that portion, and I'm glad you said that because that portion of it, it's like you're trying to expand what
Yes.
what the thing can actually do.
Yep.
That's after I learned the basic. Once you learn the
Mhm.
basics, like I'm about to have fun with this thing. See how fast,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I say that because the first thing you need to do when trying to discover a hobby is recognize that a hobby is not a job. You can't take that same job mentality into the space of discovery for a hobby, because when you bring that same mentality into the hobby space, you're discovering a job that might be funner than the job that I actually have. That's why I start there. The second thing I would say, recognize that the most important word in this question is discovering, which means
Mhm.
I have to try something and then recognize that that something that I tried may not be the hobby for me. Let me try this one. That may not be the hobby for me. Let me try this one. That felt really good, but what if I did this way? So discovery means that you got to try something different than what you currently know. Once you find that thing, now, not a lot of time, but devote some time to that thing for discovering the thing that this new thing is going to teach you about yourself. Because everything that you encounter comes with a lesson. The issue with us is that sometimes we go into things thinking that we know everything.
Mm.
Once we yield to the thing that we're doing, I'm not saying submit to it, but yield what we know for what we can know, then you'll be surprised at what you learn. Like I love the notion of horseback riding. I don't ride horses though, but I have a coworker and he has a horse farm. And one of the things that I've learned, which I thought was so awesome, he said, here's something that you got to learn about a horse. He said, a horse is a great animal for PTSD. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. I said, I thought dogs were. He said, dogs are good, but dogs are not horses. I said, well, that's obvious, right? We joke around. So that's,
Yeah.
he said, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. He said, a horse really is in tune with their rider. I'm like, really? So, yeah. He said, but the issue with most riders is that most riders think they know how to ride horses. The horse lets you ride him. You don't command them. I'm like, wait, hold on now. Maybe I'm looking at this differently because he was explaining all this. Like, there has to be a bond between you and the horse. Now, this took me back to the movie Avatar. I don't know if you've seen the Avatar. So when they had to take their hair and marry up with whatever animal they were going to ride, it was a relationship that they had to develop. So first they made
Mm.
up fighting and so forth and so on. That's the same thing with horseback riding. I'm like, huh? He said, but once you learn that horse and that horse learns you, that horse will forever be in tune to you. Now, here's the other part, that horse can also sense your emotions. So when you're riding on that horse, you have to regulate your emotions the entire time. Because when you get high strung, that horse gets high strung and you're
Mm.
going to feel the effects of it. I said, man, this is interesting. So I say all that, right? And I apologize for the long story, but I say all that to say that when it comes down to new hobbies, I believe it's something similar to that. Like the hobby is a hobby, and it's going to be a hobby regardless of whether you do it or not. But what is the hobby teaching you about you? Because once you learn the lesson, that thing is trying to teach you about you. And I got it. Somebody's like, well, how can a car teach me a lesson? You might be surprised, right? Once you learn the lesson that that hobby is trying to teach you about you, then you become a better person.
Mm, I like that. I like that. I think I don't want to get in trouble for my response. Um because but it is one way, and part of my response is get on TikTok. Get on social media. Now, here's what I mean by that. I have discovered so many different interests. Interest, not hobbies. I've discovered a lot of interest just on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you go to my TikTok, my FYP, you're gonna see people. You're gonna see some dancing, some fun. You're gonna see some funny stuff. You're gonna see some. There's a lady I do, and all she does is shear sheep. I got a guy. All he does is horse hooves. I got a guy who do cow hooves. I got people who do just one lady, all she does is show her farms. You know what I mean? They got none when they open up the big barn doors and these ducks just rush out. You know what I mean? So what I've developed things that I can do for interest. So now I can take some of that stuff and I can maybe develop it into a hobby. But I just that's kind of what I want to speak about when it comes to the interest. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to spend much time on TV and social media and TikTok and different things like that. All right, because that can be a negative. Because next thing you know, you can find yourself just being on TikTok and then find yourself addicted to it, and you like, how in the world I get here? So I say that with a little bit of caution. Anytime you get into anything like social media and stuff like that, for a lot of people, it can be very addictive. So but when it goes back to discovering, like coach said, the key word is discovering. Now, how do you discover? So sometimes it just requires us to look at ourselves, discover me. So when I'm watching TV, what do I spend my time watching TV on? Okay, so I'm always on the DIY network, right? I love watching people build stuff. That may be a hobby for you. That may be something that you may enjoy doing in the physical now, so not only can you, and then now it kind of gives you a pass to go back and watch some more TV, right? Because now you can watch TV shows on your hobby.
Yeah.
So when you ask that question about can TV be a hobby, if it's channeled right, I honestly absolutely think that it can be.
Mm-hmm.
If my hobby is RC cars and drones and I want to expand, perfect word that you said,
Yep.
then I need to get more information on how to expand my hobby.
Right.
So I just think that, discovering sometimes can simply come down to you looking at your life, see what things that you're already interested in, and then going out and act on some of those things that you're interested in. And I think that's a way, a strategy that you can use for discovering a new hobby or an interest.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with all of that. So what I heard you say, and there's definitely a word that needs to be addressed specifically, is that you must become intentional, right? So when you talked about watching TV, you're intentional about watching TV. I'm not watching TV because I'm looking for for some cooking shows, unless cooking
Unless
is my hobby,
there you
right? Or
go.
I want to get into cooking as a hobby. So if that's the case, I become intentional about looking at cooking shows. I become intentional about looking at cooking on TikTok. And trust me, it's a lot of man. Let me tell you something. TikTok is flooded with people teaching you how to cook this and
Yep.
different recipes and things of that nature. And so you become intentional about those things. You do not watch the other stuff. When you start watching the other stuff, those things are distractions from what it is you're do.
Distraction.
So you have to become intentional, right? That's key. And I do apologize that we did not mention that in the beginning, but doggone it, we mentioned it now,
There
right?
you go.
Become intentional about what it is that you think you want to do. Just do the thing, discover what you learn about yourself and doing the thing. You may learn, I don't even want to do that. Here's another thing, pick up the phone and call somebody. Say, hey man, I was just listening to, Coach's Corner, and they said that I need to, incorporate a hobby. And I like what they were saying. So what do you do for a hobby? Because you might be surprised at what you learn from a friend. You ain't got no
Mhm.
hobbies? No, man, don't have any hobbies. Man, let me tell you what. Come on over to the house. Let me show you what I do. And
Yep.
so you may be surprised. Like you may go over there, and that person may have a turtle farm. I didn't know you had a turtle farm. Yeah, it's just my own little small turtle farm. I enjoy raising them, breeding them, things of that nature. Like interesting. So you learn a lot of interesting things about people when you discover their hobbies. Some of the interesting things that you learn that they don't have hobbies. So they may learn that they need at least one hobby. So that's something. I know, like you mentioned with the RC cars, that some things can be pricey. So you have to discover your budget for hobbies as well. That's something
Absolutely.
else as well. Like what can I afford to do? How much of my finances can I devote to hobbies? And again, make a budget for it monthly. That is a great strategy to have, because if you omit that, then you're going to sacrifice something for that. And that's not a good strategy to have either. So it's several strategies out there, but I think if you start with
Mhm.
this, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing. Sometimes I want to play the RC car, but I got some chores to do around the house. She'll like, hey, the trash ain't been taken out, right? So when it comes to our personal and professional, I mean, our personal professional relationships, right? A lot of people got hobbies. Sometimes they kind of get mixed in there because a lot of times, in many cases, our hobbies are our hobbies. Everybody don't have hobbies that them and their spouse or them and their brother or sister or family is necessarily interested in. So how do hobbies and interests impact our personal and professional relationships? Good or bad?
I think so. I love this question. And first and foremost, I would tell you, go take that trash out, bro. You got,
Yeah, man.
yeah. Don't even play the radio. Just go take
Right.
the
I always keep my trash out.
Absolutely. um, I think when you look at this question, and here's why I love it, because it makes you look at the comparison. But initially, that's what you see. But then when you start looking at the comparison, you really start seeing the contrast: personal versus professional. Well, let's go back to personal and professional development, because whether you realize it or not, if you're doing personal development, you're really also doing professional development. If you're doing professional development, you're really also doing personal development. The only people who that doesn't work for is people who believe that they're a different person at work than they are at home. If you believe that you're a different person at work than you are at home, then what you're doing is it's kind of like a thing we call code switching. Like you're kind of living like a double life, right? And I get it. In the army, I didn't, I talk one way to soldiers. I didn't talk one way to children, but there was a lesson in to my children. I'm sorry, but there was a lesson in that. Maybe I shouldn't have been talking that way to soldiers. That's probably the lesson that I needed to learn. So when I look at how do hobbies and interests impact our personal life, it's a part of them. It's an integral part of it. Like I don't have to hide my hobbies to the people that I'm professionals
Mm,
with, right? Because they need to understand that I'm human. If they don't understand that I'm human, then 9 times out of 10 they'd be like, "Well, he's not relational." So when we separate those things, we're preventing great relationships from happening. That's the key. When if me and Garfield only communicated in the personal in the professional space of coaching, and I shielded all of my personal interests and hobbies from him. You're like, man, coach is 10-2. He's all about business. No, I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Every time I see you look serious, that's just my face. I'm sorry. I can't help it. You know what I'm saying? But when I reveal to him, say, hey man, have you ever done this right here? I'm like, no, I ain't never done it. Oh, bro, you need to give it a shot. It's fun. And then next thing you know, he goes out and give it a shot because he had some free time. Then he comes back like, coach, bro, I love this. So now we have a different level of relationship on a personal level. We still respect each other professionally, but we also now have a personal relationship as well. So when we look at how do hobbies and interests impact, it impact personal and professional relationships immensely. You will be surprised. Open up, share your personal interests with some of your coworkers, those who you talk to, right? So everybody shouldn't be exposed to it. We got to pick and choose those individuals that we're relational with, right? Share something personal about yourself, something that interests you. Ask what interests them, because you might learn from them, something that they're doing. That thing that they're doing may later turn out to be a hobby for you.
Mm. I must speak to the mindset portion of this question, right? We mentioned earlier about the mental health and the overall well-being um of hobbies, and having hobbies and interests, and being and spending time and doing them, and we just feel better, we're a better person. We talked about that triangulation piece and stuff like that of the mind, body, and soul. So with this, I think if we are a better person because we've allocated a certain amount of time, or we have a lot of that work life hobby balance, you know what I'm saying? Then I think that just makes our personal relationships better. When I can go out there and play the RC cars for an hour or something like that, and come back in the house, and I can get on the computer, or I can go in there and spend time with Shell, but I'm in a better place, you know what I mean? Because I've done something to to make me feel better. I've done something, not just feeling as a feeling, but actually feeling better, not just from a feeling, but just being better overall as a person. Having my mind been able to release and to relax for a few minutes. My eyes don't have to stare at these screens for a few minutes. Different things like that. So definitely beneficial and definitely helpful and stuff like that. Man, chugging right along, man. Man, I'm looking at the time,
I did too.
and we got some new stuff going on. But I want to get to this one last question, because you kind of talked about it earlier, and I want to make sure that um which one was it? Okay, I think it was this one. Was it this one or the overwhelming one? It was one of these camping hobbies. Might have been this one.
Okay.
How do you balance time between hobbies and responsibilities? Yeah, I think this was it, without being overwhelmed. Yeah. I'll start with this one.
Okay.
Um, Balance, and you have to have some discipline. And one simple thing that someone can do is create a schedule. That's a very simplistic thing to do, and it's often overlooked. When in the financial piece, whenever you go out and hire a CPA, or you're trying to do your budget, or you're trying to figure out where you are, one of the first thing they ask you to do is go back and print out your last month's um um
You were about to say
bank
LES.
statement.
You were
Yeah,
about to
I was
say
about to
LES.
say LES. You
No.
heard me? Yeah. Go print out your LES, soldier. Yeah. So what you do is you go print out your last month. So you go print out your last month's bank. I almost did it again. Your last month's bank statement, and you will be able to tell exactly what you did with your money. The same thing goes with our life. If you was to actually go back and look at your day, and you say, okay, what I woke up at 7 o'clock this morning. What did I do at 7 and 8? And you used to break it down by hourly, you would see exactly what you're doing or not doing with your time.
Mm.
Now, to create that balance is you figure out, do the same thing. You put it on your schedule. Write a 7-day schedule, write a 1-day schedule, or a month schedule, or something like that, and input certain things to do with your hobby. All right. So on this day, 3 days a week, I'm gonna play with my RC cars for an hour each. So now I already have built in. So now where am I going to put it at in my schedule? So I just think that's one of the things we can do, is just get more organized and get and put something on a schedule for us to do. And I think that'll help prevent being overwhelmed, and, like we mentioned before, some of that burnout.
Absolutely. There's only one thing I would add to what you're saying, because I agree
Mhm.
100%. I would add, you need to allocate priorities in the day. I'm not
Mm.
talking about any tasks that you have to do. Like, what does your day look like during, your calendar? So maybe from, I don't know, 8 to 5, those are your work hours. Okay, where does your lunch exist in there? Okay, I go to lunch, let's just say from 11:30 to 1. So I work from 8 to 11:30. and then from 1 to 5. Those are my priorities. Those are my workouts. Those are when I take care of tasks that move me in the direction of goals. Okay, so now after 5, what do you have? How are you breaking it down? So from 5 to 6:30, I'll say that that's my time to eat, cook dinner, eat, so forth and so on. If I have a if I'm a family man, I need to spread that
Mhm.
time out. So now from 5:30 to like 8 o'clock, you know what I'm saying, or whatever that looks like. Or maybe I break it up and I give my hobby between 5 and 6, right? And then at 6, that's when I start, dinner and family time between 6 to 9 or 6 to 10 or whatever that looks like. So now that my day is already portioned out, now I can start plugging in the responsibilities. Plug the responsibilities, goal tasks, they go up top, between 8 to 11:30 and from 1 o'clock to 5. Then my hobby, the time I allocated, and then my family gets the rest of this. So now what I've done is I've done this thing, and I know people like to say time management. Oh, you don't own time, so you can't manage it, right? You're setting priorities within it, which means that when I look at the responsibility, all 15 things on this task will not fit between 8 to 11:30 and from 1 o'clock to 5. So I have to prioritize these 15 down to three. And so this, however many hours that looks like, that's one or two of the three priorities. Because if I can throw myself at the most important one of the priorities, I should be able to get that done today, and then I can start on number two afterwards. And then at 17, I'm sorry, at 5 p.m. I cut it off. Right? It's hard to get it out, right? At
Mhm.
5 p.m. I cut it off because it's now the transition. So what we're doing now is we're prioritizing based upon time blocking. So when we start putting things in time slots, we stick to the time. We do not negotiate with what we establish. When you start negotiating with it, you're really sacrificing somebody else or something else for it. So you'll sacrifice your hobby for it, or you'll sacrifice your time with your family for it as well. So
Mhm.
that's the only thing I would add to it because you said it perfectly.
Yeah, man. All right, so here we are. Got some new stuff. All right, so here we got today, folks. We got a little something extra, So please comment in the chat and let me know let us know what y'all like. We're gonna be trying little different things right here, bring something exciting and new every week, right? So one of the first thing we are gonna get, so we're gonna do some true false. We got some multiple choice questions
I call it
and huh?
multiple guests. No, I'm joking.
Multiple guests, yeah, some multiple guest questions. And have we got a couple of scenarios too. So added some scenarios, coach brought some scenarios before. So we're gonna see how this works out. So let's start with some of these true false. So true false is the chat. You're always there, so feel free to answer anything you want to in the chat. But with that being said, true or false, developing new hobbies can reduce stress and anxiety.
True,
Bruh.
sir.
It ain't nothing else even to add to that.
Is
True
it
all
true?
day and twice on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Um, Hobbies and interests have no impact on professional growth.
I cannot agree with this statement.
Mm. So you said false?
Man, let me tell you something. Some of the most profound lessons you will get, you'll discover on a golf course.
Say less. I agree with that too. I definitely agree with that. It is unnecessarily true or false. It is unnecessary to schedule time for hobbies.
False. We just talked about it.
We just talked about it. Now, I will say, yeah, it's false. Um,
Even if you're unemployed,
yeah,
it is still necessary.
yep, yeah, I agree. Last one, last true and false. Pursuing hobbies always require significant financial investments.
False.
False,
My
false.
drone. Let me tell you something. This thing right here,
Uh-huh.
you can get this anywhere from $50 now to $1,000.
Mm.
They vary in price. It depends on how much you want to invest, right, and how serious you are. Obviously, when you get more serious, when you start wanting to do like the FAA license and things of that nature, then of course you might want to get a better drone because now you're looking at aerial photography. Aerial photography, whether you guys did not know it or not, is actually a pretty good thing. Just throwing ideas out in the atmosphere.
Sure is. That hobby could transition into a business.
Yep.
Just saying. You've always talking about owning businesses and stuff, man. All right, here we go, folks. That is somebody fishing. He's enjoying one of his hobbies. And here's the first question of the night. Not first question, the first multiple choice question of the evening. Which of the following is a benefit of engaging in hobbies? A, increase stress levels. B, improve mental health. C, decrease social interactions. And D, reduce cognitive functions.
Can I get an observation before I get my answer?
Yes.
As this young man is fishing, I promise you, it looks like he's standing in moving water. I just wanted to say that.
Oh,
I
yeah. I
just want
just
to
saw
say that.
that. Man.
Okay. The answer to this particular question is B, improve mental health.
Mm-hmm. What about A?
Oh, wait, hold on.
That said increase stress. B was right.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah.
B.
I know I read them already, but yeah, absolutely. What about A? No, I can't.
No. No, I say
No.
increase stress.
Right.
Supposed to be less. Supposed to decrease stress. Number two. What is a common barrier to developing new hobbies? A, lack of interest. B, financial constraints. C, time management issues. Or D, all of the above.
What size batteries are you looking for? D. That's all I
E.
got. That's all I got.
Yeah.
D.
Yeah. Lack of interest. I see that a lot. And that's kind of what I talked about. Like, if you don't see it, I think sometimes when you don't see people with hobbies,
Mhm.
I don't even know if I really knew growing up that there was like something to do. Like,
Well, for me, if I can be transparent,
yeah.
I viewed people like those people who like participated in hobbies and things of that nature.
Hmm.
Like, I'll be honest with you, I thought people with money participated with hobbies. Like, I thought you had to have money. I know no
Yeah.
one ever really taught me about hobbies. I never really knew anybody who had hobbies. Everybody I knew worked and took care and paid bills and took care of their
Yeah.
families. So when it comes down to the lack of interest, I think sometimes it's more of a lack of awareness because I can't be interested in a thing I'm not aware that exists for me. And that's why I say it that way. It's not that I did not know that bike riding was available, playing tennis was available, swimming was available, but I just didn't know it was available for me because I thought it was a thing that well people had to pay something that we didn't have.
Yeah. Definitely get that. Number three, how can hobbies impact your professional life? A, by causing distraction. B, by improving skills and creativity. C, reducing work efficiency. And D, creating conflicts.
The ideal answer is B.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you guys try to get into these competitive hobbies like fantasy football or whatever the case may be, that might create some D as well,
Yep.
some conflict. So we got to be careful. I'm all about playing fantasy
Yeah.
football, but I play fantasy football with people who know how to regulate their emotions.
Yeah. It could be A and B too. You at work, y'all getting into it over them fantasy points and who won and stuff and who got drafted. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I get you. Um Number four, what is an effective way to discover new hobbies? A, ignoring recommendations. B, exploring various activities. Or C, sticking to routine tasks. Or D, avoiding social interactions.
Discovery always require exploration. B.
Mm-hmm. Yep. B, exploring various activities. Ignoring recommendations. Sheesh. What we got next? Oh, we got to the scenarios. All right, here we go. So here's this first scenario. Jane and Mark have been in a relationship for 3 years. Jane has recently taken up painting as a hobby, which she finds relaxing. Mark, however, feels neglected as Jane spends more time on her new hobby than with him. Coach, the floor is yours.
Mark need to get out his ego. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I apologize. No,
Yep.
please forgive me.
That's probably what
Um,
Chris would say right now, too.
but yeah, that's. I mean, I hate to be blunt. Mark feels neglected. It may not necessarily be fact. It's just how he feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ideal thing to do is for Mark and Jane to have an honest conversation. And one of the things that Mark may learn is that it's possible that he can take up painting with Jane. Therefore,
Mhm.
it can be a joint hobby since they're in relationship together. Um, and plus, here's the other side to it. They've been in a relationship for 3 years. Surely there has been a time that Mark learned that Jane had an interest in painting. But the question that I pose with Mark is like, have you ever tried painting? Have you ever considered yourself painting? Do you see the joy on Jane's face when she like comes and present a painting to you or whatever the case may be? Like, is it possible that you can explore painting with Jane and then realize that, hey, you may like it as well, therefore you guys can actually like it together. So that's where I would start. If I was coaching Mark, I would ask him, why do you feel neglected? What is it about this entire situation that makes you feel that way? Because I want him to not just project his feelings, but harness it, analyze it, and then get down to the raw facts behind those feelings. So that's why I
Yeah.
will start with this.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think one thing that I think one thing that we need to one thing that's important is how much time is Jane spending on her new hobby? If Jane is coming home from work at 5 o'clock, she's cooking dinner and everything's done by 6:30, and then the rest of the night until 10 o'clock, she's in the studio painting. I understand that. So I think figuring out how much time that Jane is actually spending on her new hobby is important. There's the balance piece is important because if her husband is feeling neglected, reason why. But then, like what you said with Mark, bro, why are you feeling neglected? There's a
Yeah,
reason why. You know what I mean? So they, both of them, they have to have an effective conversation and bring those things to the point. She say, "Hey, look, I got a new hobby right now. This is blah, blah, blah." Mark, goes into why he feels neglected. And hopefully at the end of the conversation, they can come up with some understanding, moving forward after that.
yeah. I do have one caveat because I
Yep.
talked about if I was coaching Mark. If I was
Yeah.
coaching Jane, I would ask her, how are you going about doing your hobby? Like you said, she could be spending a whole lot of time doing the hobby. Like
Yeah.
after participating in your hobby, do you come home and spend a lot of times talking with him about your hobby? Right.
Hmm.
That's another thing as well, because maybe part of his neglect is that she has too many experiences that do not incorporate him. If I
Hmm.
was coaching both of them as a couple, because I do that as well, if I was coaching both of them as a couple, I would have them to analyze their behaviors. The only thing different I would ask Jane, outside of what I've already articulated about Mark, is that I would ask Jane, have you ever considered inviting Mark to participate with you in your hobby? How have you invited him into it? Like, do you just come and share the stories, or did you ask him to go with you? Not demanding he go with you, but see if he has an interest. Or ask him, what hobby would he like to do? And maybe you can still maintain that hobby and participate in his hobby as well. So there's always a way to find balance in a relationship.
I agree. Scenario: Jamie and Antoine both have demanding jobs. Jamie wants to start a new gardening hobby to relieve stress, but Antoine feels it would add more to their already busy schedule.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So my initial thoughts is that the name Antoine had me laughing because you know why. We have a shared friend named Antoine. Um,
Yep,
so
that was intentional.
it was intentional. I knew it. So Jamie wants to start a gardening hobby to relieve stress.
Mhm.
Great. Is this a conversation that Jamie had with Antoine about the levels of stress that she is experiencing? Where does that stress originate from? Things of that nature. Antoine feels that it would add more to their busy schedule. I don't disagree with Antoine as long as he can produce the relevant facts to support this is why he feel. I got it. You know, you may work 10-hour days. I may work, no, I'm sorry. Jamie may work 10-hour days. Antoine may work 12-hour days. So when Antoine come home, he is looking forward to seeing Jamie. Well, can we do these gardening jobs or these, this gardening hobby? Can we do it on the weekend outside of the regular, normal day-to-day activity? Like, what can we do? We understand the problem. The problem is that Antoine feels one way and Jamie wants to do a thing. And I'm not saying that Jamie shouldn't do it, and I'm not saying that the way Antoine feels is wrong. But I would like for Antoine to analyze how he feel and come up with the fact that validates how he feel, which I think is very important. And now the facts become the thing that we talk about, and then from there we ask Jamie. So based upon the facts that Antoine is presenting to you. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you concur that these are facts that both of you are dealing with? So, what can we do? Because I'm not asking you to give up your hobby, your desire for doing this hobby. And again, like we talked about with the previous couple, Antoine, is this a hobby that you would consider participating in? Like, you may not want to do the exact same type of gardening she is doing. Maybe she wants to do the flower beds and all that other good stuff. You believe in the yard, the grass staying green. Like, that's kind of like what most of us do, right? We like green grass. We might add a tree here, some shrubs around here to kind of beautify the yard. So, what can we do to turn this entire situation into a positive for the couple?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This is, I can definitely see this one being an issue. Because it seems like just based off the scenario that they've probably already at least attempted to have a conversation because they know because if he's feeling like, it's going to add more to their schedule, then she's probably already brought it up,
Yeah.
and it can be challenging. I think that both, you know, I think Jamie needs to do a good job of articulating, we talked all show about, the relieving stress piece.
Hmm.
So, and if she thinks that this is something that's going to relieve her stress, then, as the man of the house, I think he has to figure out some way to um to create space for that. However, if he feels like it's adding more to their already busy schedule, then he may know something about her, and maybe that's why, he's saying that,
Hmm.
but like just like the last one, they gonna have to have a conversation. She's gonna have to say, "Hey, look, this is what I'm thinking. My gardening schedule and my gardening hobby is gonna look like."
Yeah.
And then he has to say, "Okay, well, I understand that," and he counter, and they go back and forth because gardening can take a lot of your time, depending on what you got in that garden. And if it's drought, then you're gonna have to go out there every day and you're gonna have to water,
Yeah.
what I mean, or weed, and it's a lot of stuff to go into gardening. So sometimes it may seem like it's something really small, and then you can expand that thing, and then now you don't have time to even do the hobby anymore because it's gotten so out of whack or so expanded, so big. So they definitely need to come together and revisit this conversation and figure out what's going to be best because um both people are probably going to have to give a little bit, I think, on this. I think she may have to, not in a negative way, maybe dumb down maybe her idea about maybe what she wants to do, because I don't really know what her idea is, and he may have to be a little bit more open to providing space so she can be able to do these things, because it's going to come back around to, if it's relieving stress for her, in theory, he should benefit from that, a less stressful wife or girlfriend or whoever it is in this scenario.
I definitely agree. I want to share another perspective as well,
Mm-hmm.
because both of my responses for both scenarios were responding to them as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I always want to start with joint couple activities first, because I believe that joint couple activities only add value to their relationship, their committed relationships. Now, am I saying that, as a couple, you can't have individual hobbies? No, I'm not saying that at all. But that's something that should be discussed, like you said. There has to be a discussion that you guys have and come to an agreement that it's that we're both okay with the fact that Jamie plays tennis or plays racquetball after work, and then Antoine goes on pump iron, right? But
Yep.
how can we make that line up with one another? How can we do those hobbies at right around the same time so that when we're done with our hobbies, we come back home to one another? Because a lot of times what ends up happening is that your work schedule drives your hobby schedule, and because our work schedules offset, you work, you get off work, you go do your hobby. While you're doing your hobby, I'm still at work. So you're done with your hobby, and I'm just not getting off work, and I'm going to do my hobby and stuff. So we're into the traditional argument, like
Yep.
we don't have enough time for one another and stuff of that nature. So I always try to look at how can we bring it together as a couple so that we can do joint hobby activities. And I think that becomes an important piece. And so again, I believe in working to the advantage of the couple without telling the couple what to do, just asking what they think is the best course of action for their life.
I like that. Well, that's part of coaching. It's the coaching piece.
That's
Shout
it.
out to coaching. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate you guys staying with us. I know we went over right now in a few minutes or so, but we got like two more, so bear with us. And we're gonna wrap it up for you guys. I really appreciate you guys staying here, hanging out with us this evening, though. Here we go. Number 7. Lisa loves outdoor activities like hiking, while her partner Kevin prefers indoor hobbies like reading. They struggle to find common ground. Um, I think this may be along a lot of the lines of what the last scenario was. But if you want to add to it, feel free to do so.
What were they doing when they first met one another? Was Lisa
Part
an
right there.
outdoor person when Kevin met her? If she was an outdoor person when she met you, then that helped you to understand the things that she was doing in her life. And
Hmm.
if she was an outdoor person and you were an indoor person, um, how did y'all get in a relationship? That's
Yep.
my initial thought. Like, what was the attraction between the two outside of the eye test, right? Get past the eye test. Now, what's the attraction? She spends more time outdoors. You spend more time reading. She don't like cabin fever. You don't like bug spray. I mean, so you see what I'm saying? It's a dichotomy that exists within a relationship that will present itself at every opportunity because all it takes is for them to not be open to somebody doing this thing that they normally have been doing for quite some time in the space of relationship. Now, here's the caveat. Did you have that conversation with one another in the beginning? What was the agreement that you guys came up to? How does where you currently are violate the agreement? What is the common ground you're struggling with right now? Like all of these questions need to be defined because if they've been together for quite some time, and let's just say Kevin may appreciate the peace and quiet he gets when Lisa is out hiking with friends. That's okay because that means that he can read. So this is an example of them doing their hobbies at the exact same time. So now let's get down to the point of understanding the common ground. I do like to start off in the beginning, like what were you guys doing when you first met? Did she always hike? Did you always enjoy reading? Or is this something that just kind of morphed as you guys progress in your relationship? Once we get that understanding, that's important. Now let's discuss the common ground that you guys first are trying to, are struggling with, and then what is the common ground that you're trying to get to, and how can we both, not one person bending, because I want to make sure I highlight that. A lot of times, what ends up happening because we're trying to find common ground. That's the thing we believe that it's your responsibility to meet the common ground that I established for you. No,
Mhm.
it's a couple of ways this exists. The common ground either exists in the middle, and we both moving in the direction of the common ground, right? The common ground exists over here because I'm already working towards what's best for us, but you're working towards what's best for you. Well, how do what works best for you equate to us? Right. So those are conversations that must be had. Identify the common ground. What are we both going to sacrifice, not compromise? What are we both going to sacrifice for that common ground for the betterment of the relationship? Because the relationship is the most important person in the relationship.
Folks, I ain't even following that one. I just ditto everything that Coach said, and then we're gonna move on to the next question. Well, you summed up. You said everything. You know what I mean? I would do a disservice by trying to add to that. So let me move on. All right.
Sir, I don't even think it's possible for you to do a disservice. I'm just saying.
Look, man. Look, here's the last scenario. Mike is passionate about playing guitar, but his partner Lisa feels that loud music disrupts her peace at home.
So what I'm hearing is that Mike is a party animal and he played music at two,
Hey,
3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
I don't
This
know.
this is
Hey,
his
if you but I get it. If you've ever had a child who has played an instrument, you've been in this situation. So you know what? I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with this one because I'm gonna start with that. Right? What's the difference? Right? My oldest son, my oldest son played saxophone. He played alto and baritone sax. Um, and he played 3 or 4 years. Man, that horn used to get on my nerves. But I loved him and I wanted him to get better at it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So being I accepted the peace being disrupted so he could learn something.
Mm.
So I'm kind of trending towards that. A little bit. Like, Lisa, chill out. He trying to get better. He trying to rock out. Eventually, he gonna get better. He gonna be able to play something besides hot cross buns or Mary had a little lamb. You know what I'm saying? Those are actually named. I remember hot cross bun because they were like the first song my son had to play on the saxophone.
Yeah,
So, and Mary had a little lamb. So but I think that, something like this, they definitely need to, I can understand it, especially, if I'm, you tired, you want peace at home. And I can understand that loud music and playing a guitar can be disruptive.
yeah.
But I think they kind of need to come to a common ground of whereas, maybe where Mike can play the guitar, maybe when he going to play the guitar, maybe on those days or something like that. Maybe she goes to Target and while he practices or something like that, or maybe she records him, like, go back to what you was talking about and doing something together.
Hmm.
Maybe while he playing the guitar, she can do the karaoke. I don't know, but they are definitely going to have a figure out a common ground because yeah, the music can cause a disruption and some peace, disruption of the peace inside the house.
Absolutely, I agree. Nothing more to add to that because you're right.
Yeah,
You hit every point really. So yeah.
bro. You had kids in the house and them jokers. Do you have kids in the house and they used to be playing the music real loud and stuff like this,
Nah, bro. I'm like Lisa. I need my peace. Y'all can listen.
bro?
Y'all can do whatever y'all want to do, but at this time of night,
Yeah,
toys go in the closet.
I didn't at nighttime. I didn't have it, but
Mm,
sometimes during the daytime they would go in there and take crazy go in there and take a shower or something like that. Bro, I had Ian, the youngest one, 19. He's
mhm.
19 now. This joker, my kids, they funny. This joker one time, he had took his sound bar probably, I don't know, 2 feet long. He took the joker into the bathroom and hooked it up to the phone stuff while he was taking a shower. My other son, Quasi, God bless him, he 22 now. That joker, I went in there one day, I heard something rocking going. I'm like, what in the world? This joker in the bathroom, he brought the TV, like a 50, probably 42-inch TV then. Brought the TV into the bed, into the bathroom. And I'm like, bro, we talking about take a shower. I'm like, bro, but why you got the TV? I'm gonna go to the bathroom, then I'm gonna take a shower. But bro, do you need the TV? Like, bro. So I don't know why I went there, but
No,
it is what it is. And folks, we about to wrap it up. We about to go through our actionable advice. And then after that, we're gonna say our closing remarks and stuff like that. And then we are gonna be on with the evening. So with that being said, who going first? Me or you?
I'll go first.
All right. Where is that button at?
It's the one over my head, the little man.
Oh, wrong one. There you go. That one.
There you go. All right. My action advice is simple. Go on a journey of discovery to find yourself a hobby. So how do we do that? Okay. Like talked about it previously. Like talk to some of your friends, find out what they actually do. Like friends that kind of think the way you think, kind of like move the way that you move, kind of behave the way that you behave. Okay. Ask them what they do for hobbies. Like, do they have hobbies, things of that nature. Look at TikTok videos, like you heard earlier. I'm a fan. I'm an advocate of that. Right. Look at certain videos, whether they're TikTok, YouTube, whatever the case may be, and learn what hobbies exist out there. Maybe a hobby for you might be cross stitching. Who knows? Maybe a hobby for you might be creating like these boards out of wood because you actually have a wood shop in the backyard, like whatever. So just go and look up something that looks like it interests you, and then try it. Right? Try it. See what you get from it. It may not be the one that you stick with, right? Then try another one. Like keep going on that discovery. And my thing is, I don't know, maybe you can do it once a week, maybe you can do it once a month, whatever your schedule can afford, but try different things to where you can settle on one thing. I mean, I got it when it comes down to things like drones and stuff of that nature. Try flying somebody else's first to see if it's fun, see if it looks fun, see if it feels fun, right? Simple stuff. And then when you do that, you may say, you know what? I want one of my own. And once you get that, get to the point of putting it on the schedule when you're going to do your hobby. Doesn't have to be a lot of time. It could be 1 hour, but that is your stress relief based upon your journey of discovery to discover the thing that interests you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my actionable advice.
Man, you always got some good actionable advice. Mine is going to be simple and quick. So this is for the people who have already discovered their hobby, but they're in the middle of trying to make sure that they implement it into their life on a daily basis. So for me, my actionable advice for you is to be intentional over the next 7 days with your hobbies and your interests. So whether that is one day for you or whether that's 7 days for you, carve out some time, put it on the calendar to do something with your hobby over the next 7 days. When we reconvene next week on Coach's Corner, you need to have had bring your homework saying that, Coach, I at least did my homework one day, 2 days, 7 days, however it is, however many days you feel, how many days you think that you need for your mental health and your well being. So, again, my actionable advice for the week is to go out there and be intentional and make sure that you do something with your hobby or your interest this week. Got anything else, Coach? Before I
You know what I
close
do?
out?
You know what I do? I like the fact because I was going to do this, but then you mentioned homework, so I want to put this out there as well. We want to talk about the things that you guys want us to talk about. Like we can come up with topics and things of that nature. And I think these topics, I pray that these topics serve you guys well. But we want to talk about what you want us to talk about. So do not hesitate by putting in the show notes after the show, right? You can send it to, you can put it, you can come to our websites, put it on the website. You can even go to an old video and kind of type in what you want us to talk about. We'll get the notification and we can respond. But just tell us what you're struggling with, what you want us to talk about to kind of give you guys some insights on it. I think that'll be a great way because again, you guys are awesome. You guys add a lot of value during the midst of the conversation, and your experiences cannot go unnoticed. So share with us some of the things that you might be dealing with in your own personal spaces, your own workspaces, things of that nature, so that we can talk about it. Don't no name dropping. Don't drop names of your bosses. Don't drop names of the
Yeah.
company, just the situation. Okay. And that's my point.
I think that was great, man. And just to close us out, man, next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of Coach's Corner. You can also find the Empowering Perspective Hearts of Men podcast Friday evening at 8 o'clock. And once a month, Coach, relationships, and then TikTok.
So once a month on Saturday mornings at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, podcast called Reframing the Image of Relationship. And Sunday mornings on TikTok at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have biblically based conversations about common problems that we are facing.
There you have it, folks. So we will see y'all again next week. Keep loving on each other. Go kiss somebody and tell them you love them. And with that being said, folks, we are out.